All right, let's get it. Why doesn't Ford make a motorcycle? Now, this is going to be an interesting video because obviously whoever's watching this, if you don't know, I'm into motorcycles. I have a motorcycle. I grew up with motorcycles and I've never seen Ford make one. I know Yamaha is like the weirdest company that makes them because they also make pianos and shit, dirt bike. You know, the brands like Honda, Suzuki, obviously Yamaha, Ducati. And I think the craziest bike that I've seen so far is the Ducati Lamborghini collab. That bike is crazy. I think it's like 80 grand.
Life, there has been one question that no matter how much I seem to think about it, I just
But Ford, I don't know about Ford.
And the more I think about it, the less it makes sense.
I think Ford was the first company to ever make a car, right? So, I mean, it would make sense if they made motorcycles, but they don't.
The Ford Motor Company, over the last few decades, has had their hands in pretty much anything that involves a motor and going fast. NASCAR, IMSA, World Rallycross, drag racing, the Baja 1000, Le Mans, and now they're even getting back into Formula One. So with all of the success across all of these different platforms, it leaves this constant wonder in the back of my mind. Why doesn't Ford make a motorcycle? I mean, not like specific.
Yo, that'd be tough. I don't think I'd be able to hate on a Ford motorcycle, especially like 1000cc, because they made the GT40 back in the 60s through the early 2000s, and I think they have a newer one too. But that car was legendary. I feel like Ford can pull some shit with the bike.
Ford, but why don't more auto manufacturers also make motorcycles? Like, why couldn't I go to a Chevrolet dealership and pick up a Chevy ZR10, or go to Dodge and get an Alley Cat wide body? Honestly, I would kill for a Ford Endeavor 1200. I mean, aside from wishing that
maybe in another reality, in the multiverse, all this shit does exist,
there were more options when it comes to American-made motorcycles besides Harley and Indian, I fail to understand why more automotive industry manufacturers don't make motorcycles as well. I've always wondered what a Toyota-made motorcycle would be like. I assume extremely reliable, as are most
like Honda
cars. And then there's the exotic market. If I had to bet, a Ferrari or Lamborghini motorcycle would be absolutely,
like I just said, they made the Lamborghini and Ducati collab. That bike is so dope. I'll put a picture up on screen right now so y'all can see it.
And of course, come with all the quirks and features, as they do. Can you imagine if McLaren made a solid sports bike? I mean, I know they already have experience making e-bikes and...
All right, McLaren, that's a big L, bro. Y'all gonna make e-bikes before a fucking sport bike.
I've been told they're pretty good. Believe it or not, this is a surprisingly simple question.
I don't care if they're good, bro. Who's gonna buy an e-bike from McLaren?
Before we can just jump to that conclusion, we really need to examine this problem as a whole. First and foremost, there is a very clear and core divide: engineering and manufacturing philosophies. Cars are inherently more complex. I mean, obviously.
But I think it's because all the car manufacturers, especially with all the regulations that they're headed towards with like EVs and stuff, they don't think they're going to profit that much from motorcycles. And if they haven't made them for a long time, I doubt that they'll want to get into the business now, unless it's just like some one-off experiment, see if they do profit. But I highly doubt it. I feel like they want to focus more on EVs and consumer like cars, you know?
Got multiple seating positions, extensive safety systems like airbags and crumple zones, and you can't forget things like infotainment, soundproofing, and climate control.
Hey, no soundproofing on a motorcycle, bro. That's just a straight win.
Comfortable ride for multiple
maybe your AirPods in that bitch.
Cargo space. Cargo space? No, dude. Cargo vroom. And motorcycles, on the other hand, are obviously completely different. Your most expensive and luxury motorcycles don't have a quarter of the assets that your base model car has. And then there's the manufacturing aspect of things: the tooling, the assembly line, the engines, the transmissions, the braking systems, and even the materials used for cars and motorcycles are distinctly different.
I feel like because of that, none of these manufacturers that don't have bikes already would have to partner with other manufacturers. Like say Ford and Yamaha did like a collab motorcycle, kind of like how BMW and Toyota did the Supra. They would have to start off like that, like buying from another manufacturer and then rebranding it as their own until they made enough to manufacture their own bikes if they made enough profit. That's how it would make the most sense for me.
Car factory is simply not set up efficiently to build motorcycles, and vice versa. With all of that being considered, we still don't even have our foot fully in the door.
I think, well, see, the example that I use is Yamaha making pianos, but they also make dirt bikes, motorcycles, and who knows what else. But they're not making cars probably for the exact same reason. If they made a car, they'd probably also have to partner with another car manufacturer that doesn't make motorcycles.
When it comes to
it's the same thing both ways.
And speaking of feet, I know you're gonna love today's sponsor.
Okay, buddy. No sponsor. Sorry. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
All right, let's get back to it. Now, to put it simply, the market for cars dwarfs the market for motorcycles.
Exactly.
In 2022, global car sales reached approximately 66.8 million.
It doesn't help that most motorcycle owners end up totaling the bike within like the first 2 years. That's just my guess, but puts a bad rep on motorcycles.
million units sold, while motorcycle sales, excluding scooters and mopeds, only was about 30 million units sold. And then there's the obvious cost. Developing a new vehicle, whether it be cars or motorcycles, requires massive R&D investments. For a major car manufacturer, that cost can be justified if it's spread across millions of units sold with a higher profit margin. But for a motorcycle company with a much lower sales volume and a much smaller profit margin, your return is significantly lower. Car manufacturers would also have to create a completely separate operational line for motorcycles, which would include a completely different manufacturing plant and process.
But I'm saying just partner with another motorcycle manufacturer, rebrand it as your own, and then y'all are in a contract for a few years or a few decades until you branch out on your own designs, you know?
Tools, new equipment, and the employees with the knowledge to run it. Investors and manufacturers are not interested in spending millions, if not...
It kind of reminds me of like Apple, how they buy their screens from Samsung, and they used to use Intel chips before, but now they slowly started the process of making their own. And I feel like if a car manufacturer wanted to get into motorcycles, they could end up doing the same thing over a long period of time.
Billions just
it's the only way it would make sense, because they don't know if they're going to profit off of a motorcycle.
So that's it then, right? It's just too expensive? That's what's separating me from a Dodge Tomahawk V10 Viper motorcycle? Fucking money? I mean, yeah, technically. But also, no, if it wasn't realistic or remotely
like I said, in another multiverse,
then why does BMW do it? How do they get away with it? Now, a lot of people don't know this, but BMW didn't start out as a car manufacturer. They started as an aircraft manufacturer, and then they started making motorcycles in 1923. But it wasn't until 1928 until they started making cars. Now, they do maintain a separate engineering and design team between the cars and the motorcycles, but they do benefit from shared corporate resources and their reputation for performance and quality. And what about Suzuki?
Not so reliable.
A lot of people know Suzuki for their badass motorcycles like the Gixxer 1000 or the Hayabusa, but they actually started out as a loom manufacturer in 1909. A loom is a machine that's designed to
it's crazy. It's crazy how these companies went from doing something completely different.
Motorcycles and then subsequently making cars in 1955. Now, while we don't see a whole lot of Suzuki cars here in the Americas,
where's Yamaha, bro? Talk about them making pianos and shit.
Making up for over 60% of all of their sales. It's crazy to think that Suzuki's cars outsell their motorcycles when they're one of the most popular motorcycles here in the world. That's pretty crazy.
Well, especially in the US, you don't see Suzuki cars here in the US.
Or should we say the Golden Wing? Honda. These
Hondeezies,
motherfuckers, man. Honda is on top of the world no matter how you look at it. And their start is actually super cool.
They're underrated. I'm not gonna lie. They're underrated. They get more hate than they need to be getting.
Why, but people needed a quick and cheap way to get around the distraught areas, and they didn't have very many resources. So Hishiro Honda, I'm probably butchering that, better known as John Honda himself, found a stash of over 500 surplus generator engines. And he came up with the brilliant idea to attach them to bicycles. These engines were used to power military radios.
Fucking genius.
They were loud and they produced a lot of smoke, which earned them the nickname the chimney bike.
Are you smoking everybody else on a fucking pedal bike with an engine on it?
Was founded. They exclusively made motorcycles until 1963 when they debuted their first sports car.
Okay, so he just confirmed that Honda is the first company that started making motorcycles from the get-go. They still do.
And truck. Now, obviously, these are not our only examples. While Kawasaki doesn't make an actual car, they make pretty much everything else. From trains to ships to off-road vehicles, all the way to aerospace components.
Yeah, but nobody knows that.
Companies like Triumph and Peugeot who have done both on their own scale as well. These weren't the only companies to try either. We'll talk about some of my favorites.
But if they profit more from doing that, like every company, if they profit from doing something else, why do they keep making motorcycles? Is it just to keep the consumers happy? Or do they know that people really only know them for their vehicles, like off-road vehicles and motorcycles in general? Or that company, Micron, jumping out, they stopped making RAM so they can make more money with AI. I don't know why these companies wouldn't do the same if they're not making that much from motorcycles.
Some coked out engineers over at Dodge were basically like, what if you could ride a fucking Viper? It was a 500 horsepower V10 with 4
Sure looks like something out of Tron.
Which technically isn't a motorcycle, but who cares? On a side note, I am teaming up with WoW to build something kind of like this, so make sure you like and subscribe to see that. I'm not really excited about dying, but fuck it, we ball. Now, Ford
That's what I'm
did
saying.
technically sell motorcycles in the early 1900s. However, they weren't made by them. It was more of like a dealership for brands, you know? Other people could sell their brand of motorcycle with Ford. And General Motors did have some ideas, but they never formulated into an actual budget or a concept, so they never really got past the talking.
They better.
Lotus is really the
Hey, as these CEOs, these old Gen X or boomers get out of the world and Gen Z starts stepping up into these corporate companies, I'm sure one of them's gonna have the genius idea of doing shit like that. Coming up like, hey, Ford, we gonna make a motorcycle. Fuck it. I don't care if we lose money. We're going to do it. People are going to be happy.
Other brand that
not the board partners though.
Produced motorcycles. They came out with the Lotus C-01. They produced just under 200 units of them, but they did sell under the Lotus name. And they are super cool looking. You know, I don't know much about these
Carbon
bikes.
fiber?
I really wish I could get my hands on one of these things. The last one I saw for sale was around $200,000, give or take. So
okay,
probably
buddy.
not happening anytime soon.
Exactly.
But do you want to know the one thing all of these companies had in common? They all started as something else and then started making cars. Every single one of them. And every single car company that started as a car company that then tried their hand at motor.
I think it's because after the Industrial Revolution, I don't know if I'm right about this, but after that, they started saying that cars had a trend of going up. Like cars were what people needed to get around and thus made the most sales, made the most money.
Motorcycles failed. Literally every single one of them. So what does that fucking mean? I did my best to channel my inner Billy Bob Thornton right there. You'll have to let me know how I did. You see, to me, it means that automotive manufacturers didn't just fail at building a motorcycle. They failed to understand the people that ride them. Motorcycles aren't just a different product. They're not simply a
therapy
smaller
for people.
car. They're a completely different culture. And every time a car manufacturer tries to build a motorcycle, they approach it like engineers and not riders. And that disconnect is exactly why they fail. Cars are transportation. Motorcycles are an identity. And that difference, it's everything. A car company can design the best spec sheet known to man.
I mean, it's
the highest horsepower, the best
the car community and the bike community not too different.
But if it doesn't feel
but
right,
it's more niche for sure.
Riders won't care. And that's why companies like Honda absolutely nail it. Because they didn't just build a motorcycle. They lived in that world first. So when you ask a question like, why doesn't Ford build a motorcycle?
But they
the
can.
answer isn't
like I'm saying, like there could be a group of engineers that go into Ford,
the real
understanding the bike culture,
is that they can't,
and then they could still risk it,
and they
and
never
say,
could.
"Fuck it, we're gonna make
Guys,
a
I want to say
bike."
thank you for watching. Your boy Do It With Dan. I appreciate it very much. I like these sit-down, informative videos. And
yeah, W Mans, bro, that was a good video. I gotta go though, so I'm gonna cut you off. So yeah, but W video. That's why Ford doesn't make motorcycles.
One day we're gonna have the intros. The intros, bruh.